Hi guys, my name is Eric. Welcome to the ET Experience. Today is October 31st, 2017. Today I am going to be honoring the life of my grandfather, since we all know that Halloween is actually the one day of the year that the spiritual realm and the physical realm is so thin that the presence of spirits, good and bad, are present. And the best way that you can honor them is of your ancestors, is to tell the world a little bit about who they were and what they meant to you. Because though my grandfather might not be with me in the physical world, I know that he's still with me in spirit, and he lives through me by me telling his story. So with that said, I'm going to just go ahead and start. My grandfather, his name is Vernon Whitehouse. He was born in, I'm not sure. I want to say, my grandma was born in New Mexico, so I want to say he was born in Oklahoma, if I remember correctly. And he lived to a wonderful age of 80 something. I know that much. I didn't really talk to my family about any of this because they're really emotional about that. They don't understand that I understand that my grandpa's not gone, and so I just want to honor him. So I'm just going to tell you about things that I remember in my life about my grandfather. My grandfather always had candy on the coffee table. It was always butterscotch candy or freaking oh my god, they were hard candies. They looked like these little jewels, and I just remember those being on the coffee table. I also remember playing cars with my grandfather, and he had the weirdest carpet in his house, the most strangest carpet I've ever seen in my life. It was like fringy carpet, and then it had trails in between it. So it was like the carpet already had roads, like streets. And so I would just sit there for hours and do cars, and he would give me cars, and I just love that. My grandpa was a trucker. He drove 18-wheelers. I remember that. So we used to get in the 18-wheeler truck. We'd always see the 18-wheeler truck in front of the house. He had a love for dachshunds or weenie dogs. I don't know. Big Man was the first gift that he ever gave to me. He gave me my very first puppy, and I think I was probably 4. We named him Big Man, and I still have a love for dachshunds. My family still raises and breeds dachshunds to this day. My grandfather was a very, very spiritual person, I believe, and he was very connected with dogs. He was very humanitarian, and I didn't really understand that until today when I went to go recycle for the first time. That he instilled a blessing and a life lesson inside of me that at the age of 35 I finally learned that it is right to recycle, and it is a right to preserve the earth for the humanity to come. And so as a childhood memory with my grandfather, we would always go walk the trail tracks, and he'd have his little stick with a nail on the bottom of it. And I thought this was the most fun thing growing up. Like, I don't understand. And then for the longest time, I was like, ugh, why do people do that? But then I realized that that's how I grew up. And it's amazing because now I'm turning into such a humanitarian. We would go walk the train tracks and pick up scrap metal. And we would pick up beer cans and Coke cans and stuff. And I would just learn stuff like that. We would sit there on our hill. We had what was called the hill. And that was more with my grandma. The railroad track was more of my grandfather's thing. He loved watching boxing. That's one thing I can remember him is watching boxing. Ooh, and another thing that I remember my grandpa doing. Hold on. Oh. My grandpa was really into old school music. He was really into I don't even know how to play spoons, but he played spoons on his knee and stuff like that. It was absolutely hilarious. And he also made tops out of wood. That's one thing that he would do, is he would build me a top with a string, and you would throw it and you pull the string, and he actually would carve them with a knife. He taught me how to slingshot as a child. He probably shouldn't have taught me how to slingshot at people, but he did teach me how to slingshot at people in the neighborhood that he didn't like, and so I would sit there and slingshot rocks. I remember getting in trouble as a child for hitting someone's car window as they were driving by, and I had to hide underneath the car in the driveway so I wouldn't get killed by a stranger. Other things. I remember my grandpa had an addiction for cinnamon burritos. And that's how he would feed me. He fed me cornbread and beans, and he fed me cinnamon burritos. Oh, and apricot trees. I have got to get me an apricot tree. He had a thing for apricots. We would make apricot empanadas. If you don't know what a cinnamon burrito was, it literally was like, we would make tortillas out of dough. My grandma would make the tortillas. My grandpa would take butter and cinnamon, throw it up, and literally heat up the tortilla, put butter and cinnamon, roll it up, and that was our meal. And it was probably like the best meal in the world. And I'm totally gonna have to do that again to honor him. I don't remember my grandpa ever drinking. I don't think I ever saw him drinking. If he did, he hid it very well. He definitely was a man that loved his whitey tidies and his overalls and a tank top. And if you ever saw my grandpa, or I used to grow up being embarrassed, like, oh my god, my grandpa's coming to the mall dressed like a fucking bum. But it was my grandpa, and I love him, and he loved me. And now I just love the fact that he was just himself. He didn't care what anybody thought about him. He thought he had very strong views and opinions of people. They weren't always the best, but I know that even though he's passed, he's realized that we've all grown up, and that some things that he taught us were wrong and some things that he taught us were right. He did tease me growing up as a kid and all my life until the day he died. When I came out to him as being a homosexual, he as a young lad, as a young boy, he wanted to like teach me, sports and stuff and how to box. And I was like, I'm gonna go do cartwheels in the front yard with grandma. And he called me a sissy and a girly boy and stuff like that. And I didn't realize, I thought he was making fun of me, but I realized that he was actually teaching me to be strong. That for my grandfather to call me these names, I took them the wrong way for the longest time of my life. And I realized that he wasn't doing it to hurt me. He loved me. He did it to me so I would get mad at him, to prove to him that I wasn't afraid to be myself. So when I would go step out into the real world, when I graduated high school, or when I found my identity and who I really was, that I would not care what anyone had to say, because my grandfather already said that stuff to me, and I owned myself, and I have never backed down or tried to change who I am for anyone else. And for that, Grandpa, I am very, very thankful for that. He taught me what it was like to be loving, how to love kids. Ice cream truck. Always doing the ice cream truck with him. What else did we do? I don't know. There's so much. Oh, we would go riding in the truck. That was like the thing. And beep, beep, or honk, honk. And we'd always ride in the truck, and we always had to ride in the back seat. I hated that. And then probably when I turned like 12 or 13, we were allowed to ride in the front seat. I couldn't even ride in the front seat like at 6. It was crazy. And let's see. We played Little Men. I would play hide and seek. I remember those days like so much. He did not like me getting in his garden. He had a garden of onions, and he had his apricot trees. We were not allowed to play in them. We always did. And he always had this metal shed in the back that we were never allowed to go into. And we were never allowed to get on top of. But when he wasn't paying attention, we did it anyways. We realized it was just full of junk metal anyways. I always thought that he was hiding something precious, but it was just metal. I mean, it still was money. It's probably still there to this day. I have no idea. I have not been to my grandfather's house in so long. No one lives there anymore. But Grandpa Bernie, I just call him Grandpa. He was a very loving man. He died at the age of, I was 21. So, 21. 14 years ago, I would say my grandfather passed away. And I used to miss him every day. I don't miss him anymore, because I know he's not gone. And he's right here with me, probably standing next to me, doing he'd always do his, and he'd do so many goofy things, and he'd always like put his glasses, if I had glasses, he'd always put his glasses down, and we'd be out in public, and he'd be like, and act like a fool, and it was so embarrassing. It was so embarrassing as a kid. Like, I was just like, oh my god, Grandpa, stop, you're absolutely embarrassing me. But he was just always like, he instilled in me that I'm not afraid to act like a freaking goofball. He was a goofball, and I love that about my grandfather. I miss him so much. I know I just said I don't miss him, but I do miss him. But I know that he's here with me, and I wanted to honor my grandfather today with that, since I know that today's the day that he can actually hear it, experience it, touch it, and feel it. And Grandpa, I love you, and I can't wait to see you again. God bless, and see you on the other side. Amen.